it's our choice whether or not we wear masks, and that's causing such division and such arguments. I can imagine there's some people who want to keep it, others they don't want to live. It's taking the responsibility away from them, and
things will change tomorrow. Numbers will go up again.
Why do you think there's been activity in Great Britain? I can tell you, I'm going to wait and say what the U.S. press has been saying, but what is your thought?
It's always going to be a variant. It's always going to be a variant. They say, small person, every person.
Number 9. Number 9. It's me, number 9. Thank you. Smell like an number. Or it can be a 6 if you like. Before we start, I have some things that I need to be read. So, number 9, will you start? Please stand. Please stand and read this.
Mina damer och herrar, jag tänkte säga att på andra sidan så det kommer. Okay, so what do we do with all the serial killers, you smart ass?
Okay, number 1. Can you please stand?
Right here. Well, my eyeglasses.
You're lucky I didn't confiscate those.
Very grateful you did not. Hey. The creator of what you're about to experience is a prison abolitionist, which means they believe in the end of putting people in cages forever for any reason. And the question, okay, so what do we do with all the serial killers, you smartass? Is a common pushback.
Thank you. How about number 5? Stand up, please. Oh, I did.
Here's the honest answer. No fucking idea, tough guy. Abolitionists don't pretend to have all the answers. They just know that the current system does not work at all. The system may have you believe it's there to save us from Hannibal the cannibal, but in reality, it mainly just further punishes human beings who've already had lives of abuse, trauma, poverty, lack of options, mental illness, and addiction, so end up doing what we call bad things.
Number 3 was... Hey.
Abolitionists believe the constant threat of criminals doing bad things is by design to prop up this worldwide system of punishment, which is just another system of control. Bad people doing bad things, as seen in the news, keeps us constantly scared, even as crime falls. It keeps us believing the only way to deal with all this badness is through faceless government bureaucrats. It makes us believe it's okay for us to think of a human being as a criminal, just as we once believed it was okay to think of a human being as a slave.
Number 10, please stand.
But fear and vengeance does nothing to heal our hearts. It only blackens our souls. Abolitionists believe we can take back control, do better, make a more humane and just society. We like cage-free eggs, so why not cage-free humans?
Thank you. Number 4.
I read slow, so I apologize.
Please read slow, it's fantastic.
The last thing the creator of this piece wants you to know is that when they were a baby, their mother went to prison for 6 months. To this day, decades later, their mother is still too traumatized to talk about what it was like to spend.
Number 8.
Time and sight.
Please spend your time inside wisely.
Okay, so we're reduced to numbers. We are not our names. We have our needs of communication with those we care about taken away. And we see the outside unable to leave.
And no sense of time, except for sunlight, but doesn't help much in Iceland.
We're learning this.
It's okay, you never get used to it.
Where are you from?
I'm from Iceland. Yeah.
Number 4.
We're being monitored.
I have some alcohol for sale. Some smoking fun.
What are you in for?
Selling alcohol.
Bootlegging. Nothing. I'm totally innocent.
So raise your hand if you're from a country that has capital punishment. What country?
The U.S.
Yeah.
Well, there are only US and Belarus that have it.
We have this in common.
Yeah, well, at least in this region.
Yeah.
Are you from Belarus?
No,
We've been there.
Hmm?
We've been there.
I have as well.
Me too, actually. It's very clean, though.
Like, I'm happy I silenced my phone because I hear a phone binging and I'm just like, oh, it's not mine. But someone's phone, someone was really trying to talk to someone.
It's my lawyer.
And, you know,
My lawyer's in here.
tell him you're busy.
Can you get us out of here?
What is the currency for the alcohol?
Well, we accept credit cards, PayPal, you name it.
Cigarettes?
It's a modern, yeah, exactly. It's a modern age. So
It's hard to pay with PayPal when you don't have your phone.
I think it's.
I thought, well, I think we should make our own version of PayPal where, like, I'll just be the money person, so everyone give me your money, and I keep it, and then when you want to pay with PayPal, you just go to me and you say, hey pal, pay that person, Nicholas. Simple, the system works.
I used to work with women in prison in Vermont, in the United States, and the first time I went into the prison, I was afraid. I was afraid of them, I was afraid of what I would see. And then when I realized that they had missing teeth because they didn't have appropriate dental and health care, and when I realized that many of them had been through numerous foster parent placements, that they were the children of parents who had substance abuse disorder, all these things, it was what he said, limited choices, a different hand of cards handed out. And it's not like somebody grows up and says, that's someone who says, I'm going to grow up and be a criminal.
Could be fun though.
What we,
You seem the type.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. I got to make a living somehow. Provide for the kids, you know. Yeah, it's just.
Where are you from?
Sweden, actually. That's the only way we can provide for our kids without taxes. Are you kidding me? That's.
So what countries are represented?
Russia.
Oh, we've been there. Iceland.
Iceland, yeah.
US.
Sweden and US.
England.
what were you doing in the prison?
I was working for an organization called Vermont Works for Women, and we would go into the prison and we would provide the women with, I would provide them specifically with job preparation skills, and I would help them learn what they needed to do to be successful in a job outside. And actually I was telling my friend that I used a lot of improvisational theater with them, because sometimes I'd come into the prison and it would be Monday morning and it might be after a major lockdown or something bad happened. And so the women would be very distraught. And so my goal would be get them up, moving and playing an improvisational theater game so that they're laughing and they can shake off their sadness, and then they're ready to learn. So I learned that theater, and I'm not a theater person, I just love theater, but I learned that theater is an incredibly powerful therapeutic tool. She's the actress. Downton Abbey.
Wow, looking forward to that. Interesting. Christmas time. Yeah. But it does, and I think improvisation, it heals, it's cathartic, and it gets an awful lot of raw emotion out there, a lot of frustration, a lot of anger, a lot of feelings. You're expressing the truth, and it's coming from a place of truth. Whereas scripted theatre, you're speaking somebody else's words, and you've got to really assimilate those, get those into you to be able to make them truthful, to make them yours. But with improvised theatre, it's just you, and that's why it's so powerful, I think, and so healing.
Yeah. So we'll end up doing some improv here and that next.
We could play Zip Zap Thought.
You know that? Fantastic. I love that game because so I study leisure and stuff like that, and I've played this game probably 1,000 times, 1,000 different groups. And this is one of those games that is super easy to learn. Like if I'm with a group that doesn't speak the same language. I volunteer with Red Cross a lot, so I have a lot of refugees and stuff. This is a game that you can teach to people, and you can just say, just language doesn't matter. Forget language. Sometimes you need to change the words in this in the game, because sometimes there'll be like, I think it was zip in some language means penis. So it's just like they couldn't play the game because they were just laughing too much. So you just change the words a bit. But it's a game that has so easy to learn, and as a group you can then build on it. You can add weird things. You can create more. So it's this sort of easy base to build on. And with you were talking about improvisational theater and things like that. Like I think that is it's a really good tool to like especially help people like you were saying, and also just to work with things. Like you can create things, like create characters, create these things to explore something that you yourself aren't ready to. And then if there's anything that happens, it happens to them, it doesn't happen to you.
Exactly.
And this is sort of something that I once wrote about that I think is, just sort of, it was one of these things that isn't used enough in situations like this and others.
Is there anyone else that's been in any other prisons? I know you have.
Yeah, here. And in Paraguay as well.
Yeah, and in Paraguay. Yeah.
And what have you done in prisons? I'm assuming you have not been an inmate, but no judgment.
No, I haven't been an inmate yet. But I monitor places where people are deprived of liberty here in Iceland. Work for the parliamentary ombudsman in this field. So it's not only prisons; it can be closed psychiatric departments and etc. But it's not very comparable. Prisons in Paraguay and Iceland.
How are they? Could you describe the differences?
Overcrowding, for example, in Paraguay versus Iceland. Most people are in single cells here, or we even call it rooms, with a TV and all like regular facilities you would have in your room, like a desk and beds. So the facilities are quite good.
Take me in.
Sorry?
Take me in.
We can probably arrange that, right?
Exactly. No kids, it's just,
Yeah.
I can spend the summer there.
Yeah.
It's probably bigger than your flat in New York.
Yeah.
Sounds like a fascinating role, though. You're speaking for those who are voiceless.
Yes, it meant to be a cooperation because it's based on this addition to the torture contract of the UN. So it's meant to be like preventive, not like taking consequences afterwards. So we're trying to work with prison authorities and other authorities to improve facilities and treatment for people. So it's all quite positive, I think. But it's interesting for me too, these politics of like abolition of prisons in this context. We're not there yet.
Is that a movement that I haven't read about, to abolish prisons?
I haven't yet, anyway.
There's a big buzz about police in New York. Should they be on the streets? I mean, it's almost there. It's pretty much the same, really.
Well, the call to defund the police is huge right now, and I mean Derek Chauvin, the police officer who murdered. Oh my goodness, why am I forgetting?
George Floyd.
George Floyd. He's sentenced to solitary confinement, 1 hour a day outside by himself. I do think that there's a significant schism in our country right now, and although racism unfortunately is woven, I think, into the culture of who we are, I personally don't think every police officer is evil. I think that there are some good cops out there, but I do think that there needs to be some re-education, some enhanced training and expectations of police officers to be more culturally sensitive with people of color, with people of difference, with new Americans, the whole kit and caboodle, whatever that means.
So he only gets 1 hour a day
Outside.
Seems pretty brutal.
Solitary confinement is
It's
considered.
tough. It's really tough.
And it's considered to be really psychologically harmful.
And by himself outside?
By himself.
Or no one
Himself.
else?
No
None
one
of the
else.
other inmates are outside?
No, and
at the
he's
same
being
time?
watched the whole time. I kind of like we're probably being watched
Yeah.
or filmed. But we can't see them though, when they're watching us.
So do you know for how long he's been sentenced for solitary confinement?
20 years.
Yeah, I think it's
20 years.
20
So
years.
one year,
Wow.
sorry?
20.
For solitary confinement?
Seems brutal, yeah.
It doesn't seem brutal, that is brutal. I mean,
It is brutal, of course.
it's also brutal how he killed George Floyd, but I mean, it's not gonna,
It doesn't bring anyone back.
no, it doesn't bring
It
us
doesn't
back.
fix anything.
Like-
It just
Yeah, but
So
they
this-
needed to set an example. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, so he just doesn't get to meet anyone ever?
So I believe he will be allowed visitors, but that's going to be limited. But yeah, could you imagine being in this room
By yourself?
by
Probably
yourself
smaller.
for 23 hours a day, and then they let you outside for 1 hour, but you don't interact with it. And they really don't want him to interact with anybody because they think the other inmates will kill him.
Yeah.
And with what he represents. Where in the States are you from?
Baltimore.
Baltimore. My sister lives there. So similar politics, I think, to
Yeah.
Vermont.
Well, I mean, I think of Vermont as being more liberal than, well, I mean, like Baltimore, we have one gun violent death a day for the past several years or decades even. But, so that type of thing, like, how do you defund the police when there's a violent gun death at least once a day? So like the murder rate of just gun violence is 300 to 400, well, 350 plus a year, so.
I hate guns. I hate guns. It's crazy in the United States. If you want a rifle to shoot deer and put the meat in your freezer, I'm a vegetarian, I'm still good with that. You know, you want to shoot a rabbit, eat it, but the craziness of the gun violence is terrifying.
Do you not need a license to own a gun in America?
In theory, but there are
Depends on the
backdoor
state.
ways.
doesn't Texas now have just everyone can kind of just
You can go
get
to
a gun?
Walmart.
I think.
You can go to Walmart to buy a gun, yeah.
Well, no, there was the recent law passed in Texas that basically said that everyone can have a gun.
I think
Or something.
you can like carry one, but you don't have to let people know that you're carrying. Sometimes
Yeah,
somebody
everyone now
carries
has
one.
open carry, which is again a weird concept just in my head. Like, yeah, you can have a gun so long as you show everybody you have the gun. You know, just let everyone know you're about to kill someone,
Yeah.
just so that they know.
you just might
Then
kill
it's cool.
someone. You know, it's a difference.
Yeah.
If
That's so weird.
So we have been to Russia, and our connection is that our ancestors are from Poland and experienced terrible, camps and all sorts of martyrdom during World War II. I wonder about, do you know anything about the prison system in Russia and what that looks
I know
like?
it's terrible. You just don't want to end up there because it's dirty and people are beaten up all the time, and the police guys sometimes threaten you, and they can torture inmates also, and you just don't want to be there. And it's so easy to get there too, so that's a problem.
Whereabouts in Russia are you from?
I'm from a small town, it's called Tambov, I guess no one has heard about it. But I lived most of my life in Moscow, so.
Yeah. Are you here on holiday?
No, I live here.
Do you?
Yeah, for 3 years already.
What brought you over here?
Huh?
What made you decide to live here?
Well, I wanted to move abroad, and Iceland was just the easiest option, so. And I also wanted to travel here, and I have few Icelandic friends, and I wanted to study the language, so it's all combined. Yeah.
And you live here in Reykjavik?
Yeah.
We rented an Airbnb in Moscow, in Arbatskaya, the Arbatskaya neighborhood. In
Where?
Moscow. Near the Arbatskaya subway,
Well, that's done.
where the Politburo people used to live.
Yeah.
And this was 2-3 years ago. And my husband and I left to the apartment. And shortly after we left, our daughter, who was 20 years old, was in the apartment. Shortly after we left, the police, Russian police showed up at the door. knocked on the door, and she opened it, and before we said, "Can we come in?" and she said, "I need to know your police, show me your ID." And they started questioning her, "Why is your family in Russia? What are you doing here?" She's like, "We're on vacation." It's the only country we visited where the police actually came to our door. But my experience with being Polish and having all this family in Poland, Polish people were very much drew a very big distinction between the Russian people and their literature and their music and their art and the difficult lives and the government. So they used to refer to the Russian government as uncle. Do you remember that? Weird?
Yeah.
Because you could choose your friends but not your family. So there was great reverence for the Russian people, but Poland always felt impeded upon by the politics of the Kremlin.
Yeah, a lot of
When did your parents moved from Poland? When did you do that? When?
So my dad came over to America in 1949 by way of
It's just
Germany.
after the war.
Yeah, he was a Polish Catholic who was a slave laborer in Nazi Germany.
Okay.
And my mother came over in 59 on a tourist visa. I was like, oh my God, they have meat. And there's toilet paper. I have to find a way to stay, even if I'm illegal. And she stayed. And your dad?
Yeah, he came over. They were taken to Siberia. They were given 10 minutes to pack their bags by the Soviet army on 10th February 1940, put on cattle wagons, and then the trains and ships to Siberia. And he died of starvation trying to feed my dad, who was only a baby. And then my grandfather and my uncles, they were paid 1 egg a day for felling trees in the Urals. And then they were liberated by the General Allies and Sikorski, Polish army and British allies, and they marched on foot to the Caspian Sea from the Urals. There are people, their relatives, and my auntie died on the way, but just left to on the side to mark the route to the Caspian Sea. Then my dad and grandmother, they were sent to East Africa by Lake Victoria in Uganda, and my grandfather and my uncles were sent to fight in Malta, Casino, Egypt, Palestine, and then they mobbed in England, and so my family was given a choice to reclaim the land because they were members of the aristocracy.
I'm a peasant. She's nobility here.
But because of that, that's why they were shipped off to Siberia to die. And it's just my grandmother was very good with herbs, and she used to collect grasses, melt the snow, make a soup, put the eggs into the soup. So they survived that way, but barely. And then, so they were offered land back in, they could go and reclaim the land in Argentina, but they didn't want to go to Argentina, so they ended up in England as refugees. So it's thanks to Stalin that I'm here, which is pretty, it's kind of,
It's like a bonkers backstory. It's Russia, Uganda, Argentina. What?
What a journey.
It's hard to do.
That there was, manic depression, mental illness caused by displacement. Because how do you pick up the pieces? How do you learn to live again when you're constantly shipped from pillar to post? You've lost everything, and then you just moved from pillar to post to pillar to post all your life. And
that's why we're such optimists, right?
You have
As
to
children
be.
of refugees.
Definitely.
There's an optimism. It's like, no soldiers are occupying our house. Nobody's trying to kill us. We're lucky. It's silly and it's crazy. But there's an optimism that exceeds that of
And I think and I think when you know how much our family lost, which was everything, and they had to start again, human endurance is huge, you know, and it's people, we go on regardless somehow, most of us anyway, finding a way somehow. But it makes you realise that everything can be taken away, and you just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other and hoping for the best. Hopefully there is something there to go forward for, but I think it's that year that they lost everything and they had
And they rebuilt.
And they've tried,
Like people in prison who lose everything, relationships, jobs, family members, personal items. And in some cases, I know in Vermont, if there's nobody to pick you up when you're released, and you don't have a suitcase, they give you a garbage bag.
Oh, wow.
You put your stuff in a garbage bag and they take you to the bus stop, and they might give you $20
But where do you go from there? I mean, like...
Usually back to your friends who got you into trouble to begin with. You know, that's the other thing. I think if you want to rebuild your life post-prison, oftentimes you have to give up your friends because they're not healthy for you. And that's very difficult.
Absolutely, because they are your family, aren't they? They're the people, you know, they're the only people you have.
But there's gotta be some like rehabilitation programs in at least some prisons around the world. I don't know if that's just a Scandinavian thing or like...
Our taxes are too low in the United States. As much as people complain, we pay far lower taxes than a lot of other countries. And so we have fewer rehabilitation options. And that's why
Is
we're
that
grabbing healthcare.
your prison system, is it like federal or is it state-based? Who's in
I
charge?
think
of
it's
it?
business-based.
Was that?
Business-based in America usually. I know that a lot of prisons are just like, there's a company and they're running the prison for profit. And usually they try to like incentivize people actually to just come back.
So there are federal prisons for federal offenses, and then there are state prisons.
Right.
So it kind of depends on, like Bernie Madoff had to go to federal prison.
Oh, poor guy.
And is there just like one type of prison, or is there like an open prison or something like that? Like, because for example, I think it's similar in Sweden, we have closed prisons, and then we have open prisons where you have more freedom, and then if you run away or do something, you are sent back to the closed prison. It's like stages. So then in the end you stay...
Minimum security, maximum security.
And then at the end you stay at a place where you go out to work during the day or go to school, and you come home at night, you know, and then electronic device on your leg. So it's like stages. You're not like pushed into reality after being closed inside for a few years.
But how, like, I mean, you know more about the Icelandic prison. I don't really know anything about the Icelandic prison system. Like, what are, you know, do we have any of this, like, solitary confinement sort of thing? And, like, how
What are the problems with Icelandic prisons?
Where are they?
Right? No, the problems. Isn't, I guess what you say. Because we always hear so much about, like, the good things in Scandinavian prisons. No, what?
Ooh, that's a good question. Devil's advocate question.
It's interesting you ask, because like now we are staying here with no phones and no like time and nothing to do. It's boredom. People don't have anything to do. Like there's not a lot of activities.
Isn't it something like study or
there is some option to study, but not all, but most of the inmates, they have problems studying, so they need a teacher on site, but it's not a lot of teaching on site. So if you're like and distant studying, you like if you want to be in university or something, you don't have a university teacher coming to the prison, and there's like the facilities are not that good, maybe because we're so small. Like you don't have like a great place to work out, or like a football field in all of the prisons, or like so I think that's the number one thing.
People just go there and are bored.
Yeah, basically bored. That's what most say. That's what most people say.
Is there a lot of crime in Iceland?
No.
Yeah.
And we're just few, and like so there's not like you can't argue that you put a lot of resources into this, maybe. I just watched this show. Have you seen it on Netflix about the world's prisons or something?
I think I saw the first episode or something.
Yeah.
Where just like the prison had its own market and everything, just like its own community, and just like even like just wealth in the prison, like there were the rich people
So like their own economy.
weren't as crowded, but then there was like the slums, which is just like everyone is one kind of place. Just a bunch of people.
Which place was that? Like what kind of country?
Just like 2 years ago. Norway.
Okay.
I have no time since. Normally, this is
It's normal
for you.
for me, it's been like 2 minutes. But no, I forget when it was. But it was in, I think, India or a country near India.
It just reminds me of, I read Shantaram. Has anyone that you read Shantaram?
No, you told me about it, but I didn't have it.
It's a great book, recommended. It's like 1,000 pages or something, so it's really big, it takes you a while. But it's a true story. It's written by an inmate, a man he's Australian originally, and then he was in prison in Australia and he escaped prison, and he moved to India, and then the story is mostly about his time in India, but then obviously after you read the book you like Google the man, and he got caught in Germany or something years later and got put in prison, and he wrote this book 3 times in prison. They kept destroying it. But it goes into, it's a very detailed description because he ends up in prison in India as well, and that has this like the slums, and it's a really fascinating story of how like survival skills within the prison, and how you're like, it's like you have to look tough, because if you don't look tough then you're gonna get
raped.
You're gonna just be on the bottom of like raped, your food stolen, beaten up, like, you know, you have to serve the others, kind of like all the things, because they only get like 1 plate of food, and the ones that are like the biggest bullies, they get like the better plates of food, or the more food, or like they, you know, and it's good because they don't all get food, because they cram in 500 people in a room that should fit like 50 people or something, and it's just like really filthy, like it's very interesting and brutal story to read. But that was, he wrote that, I think he was there in the 90s maybe, I think, because he's no longer in prison and now has published this book, but is completely unknown as well. He doesn't have a, if you try to Google him, you end up on a webpage that says, I do not want to be known in the world, so stop trying to contact me or something. So it's like he doesn't do any interviews or...
Probably has PTSD.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff that goes on in this book, but he's like, it's a really interesting, like, he gets involved in the Bollywood scene, and then he's forging things, and like, originally he's like a Robin Hood kind of character, so he ended up in prison in the first place because he was selling drugs or something. It wasn't, and like, you're rooting for the guy. I think that's the main thing, you're rooting for the guy until like mid-book when he gets thrown into prison and he like rips the eye out of someone or something. He's like, I had to show that I was tough, and I'm like, whoa. So it's kind of crazy. So.
And that makes me think of in the United States, sometimes when a child, a teenager, commits a heinous crime, a terrible crime, the prosecutors might say, let's try this child, this young person, as an adult, based on the nature of the crime. And what happens is, if that happens, the sentence is much longer. And some will say that somebody can make a mistake and be sent to prison, but the transformation that happens in order for them to survive molds them into a different person, and prison does more harm than good. They're not reformed. They've been changed, and not because they've been changed for the bad, because they have to do that to survive.
That idea doesn't make sense to me. Like the whole try as an adult thing, because like I think the biggest reason we try children and adults differently is just because they have completely different brains.
Yeah, exactly. It's not fully formed.
Like children of a certain age, they don't even have full empathy.
Yeah, they can be little psychopaths.
Like, yeah, that's what they actually do. But that part of the brain is not there yet. It's just
Spoken like a parent, right?
Absolutely.
I've been working with 6-year-olds all the past year, and I can claim that 6-year-olds are all psychopaths. It's just me. They don't see beyond like.
No, exactly.
It's like, yeah, I want to do this. Well, if you want to be on the swing for longer, that means the other kid doesn't get to be on the swing. And you have to share the swing. No, I got here first. I'm going to be on the swing. Well, that means that maybe tomorrow, like you won't get here, and then you don't get to. You have to plan it. They don't plan in advance. They don't. It's just now here. Don't remember what happened yesterday. Don't care what happens tomorrow. Like I am in the swing right now, and this belongs to me.
Yeah.
And like fuck you. Like nobody else is getting it. And it's really trying to teach them empathy.
Yeah.
And like it's we read like the Christmas story of like the little girl with the matches.
Oh, the little match girl.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
pretty
Super duper sad. It's this little girl and she has like matches and then she dies of cold and it's a Christmas story and you're like, this is the saddest thing ever. And they're like, okay, can we do presents now? And you're just like, after school program for like 6-year-olds in elementary school.
I was to go to kindergarten for 2 days.
And that's all you could do in your life. But it's they haven't realized like, and I mean it's like it comes, I don't know, you're a 10-year-old.
I can relate to the psychopath idea. Yeah.
Well, I'm reading actually a book about the Gulag right now. I'm reading Kolnia Tales, which is kind of like Solzhenitsyn light. And I was thinking about how this man, I forget his name right now, but he wrote short stories inspired by his 12 years in the Gulag. And I found him more accessible than Solzhenitsyn, which my husband reads a lot more of. But observing the behaviors of the prisoners in the Gulag and living with scarcity made me think of the people in prisons that I encountered and the entrepreneurs that you would be entrepreneurial in prison. But Krishna and I were talking about we both observed in our families hoarding behaviors with food and in my family, very unhealthy relationships with food. You gotta eat it all because you don't know if there's gonna be more tomorrow. And that stuff,
And with things, hoarding with things as well.
Yes,
Because they
toilet
do
paper.
everything, jars, anything, because they didn't have anything. They had to make do, and that was all they had. So it continued
And
throughout
it's-
life.
And if you are familiar with epigenetics, on a genetic level, we carry things that our forebears experienced. And the practices that, the harm that the Nazis did to our families impacts who we are, even though we weren't on the scene. It impacts our view of the world.
And it's weird, we don't need to sit in these chairs.
We don't need to sit at all. We can do whatever we want.
That's what's comfortable.
It's gonna do some stretches. When is the improv session start?
Are you a dancer?
No.
A yoga woman?
Let's do yoga.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sit sats.
So you're gonna teach us and charge us.
And then I'm gonna do the drugs.
Yeah, that's a big part of yoga, you do like this.
I love how you're coming off as this really badass drug dealing
Yeah.
guy.
They told us in prison, so I thought,
And not like one of the world's best, instrumental performer in the opera at all.
Is that what you are?
yeah.
Well, see, this is why.
Yeah, that's what I do.
This is why you can't line
I
prison.
play trombone and I used to work the mat.
Oh, Oh, in New York.
In New York, I played in London a lot. Yeah, I travel a lot. I don't sell drugs usually.
Does anybody here a planted actor?
No.
You thought I was planted, okay.
I
I gotta get the game.
I'm in fact the host.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking that you were.
Yeah.
Ah, you started the conversation,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
we're being
yeah.
watched. So
No,
we're-
I'm a grant writer from Vermont. Hello.
Maybe that's just
Hey, are we done? No way.
This is gonna be on Netflix.
Can we stay longer? That did not feel like an hour.
When is the pizza coming?
I thought we were like 20 minutes in. Shit.
We have to leave?
You're welcome.
Oh, we're
Oh, I'll have to go see another show then.
Yeah, let's do
Lovely
it.
meeting everybody.
You har varit först.
All right, no, but
Är de med?
Yeah.
Jag vet inte, alla vet på något sätt.
Jien last the next
Great conversation. Thank you.
My grandparents did it in Germany, and they got represented Poland, and then went to the whole Russia, they did the whole Slovak and then Nazi camps, yeah. In well, especially the States, Argentina, Sweden, obviously, my part.
Did somebody leave their jacket? Where you were sitting?
Oh, Krishna, you're back.